Ryan lived in a world where everything seemed golden, but nothing felt right. His father was one of the richest men in the city, owning tall glass buildings, expensive cars, and even a private jet that often sat waiting at the airport. People bowed to his father's name. Teachers at his school knew who Ryan was before he even stepped into their classrooms. To them, he was supposed to be special, the son of a man who controlled half the businesses in town. But when the teachers handed out exams, Ryan's papers told a very different story. Red marks covered the pages, wrong answers lined up like soldiers. Every time he turned in a test, he already knew what the result would be. Another failure. Another disappointment. Another reason for the whispers to grow louder behind his back. He hated those whispers most of all. His classmates, dressed in neat uniforms and polished shoes, would smirk as they watched him struggle. They called him lazy, though they never said it to his face. They would say it in the corners of the hallways, in the cafeteria, in quiet laughter that echoed louder in Ryan's ears than any shout ever could. He wanted to scream sometimes to tell them he wasn't stupid. He tried. He really did. He stayed up at night with thick books open in front of him, staring at the words until they blurred. But nothing seemed to stick. Numbers twisted in his mind. Words scrambled themselves, and history dates fell apart like broken puzzle pieces. The harder he tried, the worse it felt. At home, things were no easier. His father barely had time for him, and when he did, it often ended with disappointment. The man who could convince powerful businessmen to sign million-dollar contracts could not hide the frustration in his eyes when he looked at his son. "How is it possible?" his father once asked, his voice heavy with disbelief. "With all the tutors I've hired, with all the resources you have, why can't you pass a simple test?" Ryan had no answer. He wanted to say, "Because money doesn't make the answers easier." But he never dared. Instead, he stayed silent, staring at the floor, wishing he could disappear into the carpet. It wasn't as if Ryan didn't care. He cared too much. Every failure dug into him like a sharp stone in his shoe. Every time his father compared him to the children of other wealthy families, he felt smaller. His father loved showing off other kids, sons and daughters of business. Partners who always came first in their classes, who spoke confidently at family gatherings, who were praised for their talents. Ryan tried to hide in the shadows during those evenings, quietly listening to conversations about scholarships, music awards, and bright futures. Nobody asked about his grades. Nobody wanted to know how he was doing. And when the subject of Ryan did come up, it was usually followed by an awkward silence. The weight of expectation crushed him. He didn't want to be a failure. He didn't want to see the disappointment in his father's eyes or the mocking smiles of his classmates. But he didn't know what to do. His tutors were highly paid, experts in their fields, yet their lessons felt like endless storms of information. They gave him worksheets, charts, and complicated explanations, but the more they explained, the more lost he felt. Sometimes he wondered if they were teaching for him or for the paycheck his father signed at the end of the month. In their eyes, he was not Ryan, the struggling student. He was the billionaire's son. That label followed him everywhere like a shadow, heavier than any backpack full of books. School became a place of dread. Every morning the driver dropped him off in front of the wide gates, polished brass shining in the sunlight. Other kids rushed in laughing, greeting their friends, ready for the day. Ryan walked slowly, his stomach tight, his mind already heavy with fear. He avoided eye contact, choosing the quietest corners of the hallways. Sometimes he would sneak away to the library, pretending to read while really just hiding. Other times, he slipped into the empty gym, sitting quietly on the bleachers, staring at the floor. Teachers noticed, of course. They would call his name sharply, ask him to focus, demand more effort. But their voices only added to the storm already raging inside him. The cruel part was that everyone assumed his life was perfect. To his classmates, he had everything, Expensive clothes, the newest gadgets, vacations in foreign countries. To his teachers, he had resources no other child could dream of. To strangers, he was the picture of privilege. But inside, Ryan felt hollow. What good was all the gold if he couldn't even solve the simplest problems on a test paper? What good? Was a mansion when he felt smaller than a servant inside it? No one saw the boy hiding beneath the label. They only saw the billionaire's son, a boy who should never have had problems. And because they believed he had no right to struggle, his struggles were invisible to them. The loneliest moments came after exams. While others compared answers and celebrated good grades, Ryan quietly stuffed his papers into his bag, crumpled with red marks. His friends drifted away, embarrassed to be too close to him. Failure, it seemed, was contagious, and nobody wanted to catch it. He learned to sit alone at lunch, pushing food around his plate without eating much. Sometimes he would sneak away to the back of the school where the noise of laughter couldn't reach him. It was there, in the quiet hallways or near the janitor's closet, that he found temporary peace. Nobody came looking for him there. Nobody expected anything from him there. Yet even in those hidden corners, the voice of his father followed him. It rang in his ears whenever he closed his eyes. Why can't you do better? Why can't you be like them? Why do you keep failing? Each question was a hammer pounding away at his heart. And because he had no answers, he began to believe maybe they were right. Maybe he was lazy. Maybe he wasn't smart enough. Maybe he was nothing more than the shame of a powerful man. The thought scared him, but he couldn't push it away. It clung to him, growing heavier with every failure. There were nights when he lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling of his enormous room. The chandelier above cast soft patterns on the walls, but they offered no comfort. He thought of all the kids out there who had nothing compared to him, no private tutors, no luxury, no expensive schools, and yet managed to succeed. Why couldn't he? What was wrong with him? He tried to read motivational quotes online, tried to watch videos about success, but nothing worked. He didn't need slogans. He needed someone to understand the storm inside him. But who would listen? His father was too busy, his mother too distant, his teachers too strict, and his classmates too cruel. So he carried his silence like a secret, showing the world a blank face while inside he crumbled. Each failure made the wall higher around him. Each disappointed look from his father made him want to run further. He wanted freedom from the prison of expectation, but he didn't know where to find it. He was drowning in a sea of wealth, and no one could see that he was gasping for air. All they saw was the surface, shiny, polished, and golden. They didn't see the boy underneath, struggling in the dark. That was how life continued for Ryan. Day after day of heavy silence, broken by tests he always failed, followed by whispers that pierced deeper than any knife. He felt invisible in a world where everyone watched him. He felt poor in the one thing money couldn't buy: confidence. And he began to wonder if his life would always be this way, a cycle of expectations and failures until one unexpected meeting changed everything. Ryan's life at school carried on with the same dull rhythm, days blending together, filled with red-marked test papers and the endless weight of failure. Yet something subtle began to shift, though he didn't realize it at first. It started in the quiet corners of the building, away from the polished hallways where his classmates laughed, and away from the stern gaze of his teachers. It happened near the janitor's storage room, a small space that smelled faintly of soap and floor polish. For most students, it was invisible. For Ryan, it slowly became his hiding place. The first time he lingered there, it was out of desperation. He had just received another failing grade, and the sharp laugh of a classmate still echoed in his mind. His throat tightened as he walked out of the classroom, fighting the sting in his eyes. He didn't want anyone to see him like that. Not again. His feet carried him to the far end of the hallway, past the rows of lockers, until he found himself standing outside the janitor's door. The hallway was quiet there, the hum of the lights above the only sound. He leaned against the wall, slid down, and hugged his knees. For a few minutes, he allowed himself to breathe. That was when he first noticed the janitor, Mr. Williams. He was a tall man with skin the color of polished mahogany and eyes that carried both warmth and a kind of quiet strength. His uniform was simple, his hands rough from years of work. He pushed a mop across the floor with steady, unhurried movements. Most students passed by without giving him a second glance. To them, he was just part of the background, like the lockers or the windows. But Ryan noticed something different. Unlike the teachers who scolded him or the classmates who mocked him, Mr. Williams did not look at him with judgment. He simply nodded in greeting as though Ryan's presence there needed no explanation. For days after that, Ryan returned to that hallway. He didn't speak much, and neither did Mr. Williams. Sometimes Ryan sat quietly with a book he didn't understand, pretending to read while the janitor worked nearby. Other times, he simply stared at the floor, lost in his thoughts. Mr. Williams never chased him away. Instead, he offered a simple smile each time as though saying, "It's okay. You can be here." That silent acceptance felt strange and comforting. Ryan wasn't used to being around someone who didn't demand something from him. One afternoon, after another disastrous test, Ryan could no longer hold back his frustration. He stormed down the hallway, crumpled paper still in his hand, and slumped to the ground outside the janitor's room. Mr. Williams was sweeping nearby, and after a moment, he spoke in a calm, gentle voice. "Rough day?" he asked, leaning slightly on the broom. Ryan looked up, surprised that someone had noticed. He wanted to shrug it off, to hide behind silence, but the words tumbled out before he could stop them. "I don't get it. I try, but it's like my brain just doesn't work. Everyone thinks I'm stupid." His voice cracked as he said the last word, and he quickly looked away, ashamed. Mr. Williams set the broom aside and lowered himself onto the bench across from Ryan. He didn't laugh, he didn't scold. He simply nodded, as though he understood. "I know how that feels," he said quietly. Ryan blinked, confused. How could a janitor, a man so different from him, understand what it felt like to be a failure in a world that expected perfection? But there was something in Mr. Williams's voice that made Ryan believe him. The janitor told him a little about his own life. He hadn't grown up in comfort. As a boy, he had shared a small house with his family, where money was always short, and opportunities were rare. He had worked odd jobs to survive, and there were times when he felt invisible to the world. He had failed many times, failed in school, failed in finding steady work, but each failure had taught him something. "You see," he said with a gentle smile, "failure isn't the end. It's just a teacher in disguise. If you listen to it, it tells you what you need to learn next." Ryan listened quietly, unsure what to say. Nobody had ever spoken to him about failure like that. To his father, failure was shame. To his teachers, it was proof of laziness. To his classmates, it was entertainment. But to Mr. Williams, failure seemed like something different, something useful. The thought lingered in Ryan's mind long after their short conversation ended. Over the next few weeks, their talks grew. Mr. Williams never lectured Ryan the way his tutors did. Instead, he asked questions. "What part of studying feels hardest for you?" he asked one day. Ryan admitted that when he looked at a page full of information, it felt overwhelming, like trying to climb a mountain with no path. Mr. Williams nodded thoughtfully and showed him something simple. He pulled out a small notepad from his pocket and scribbled a list. "Break it down," he said. "Don't try to swallow the whole mountain at once. Take it one step, one piece at a time. Write down what you need to do, then cross it off as you finish. Small steps make big journeys possible." It was such a simple idea that Ryan almost laughed. None of his expensive tutors had ever said it like that. They gave him thick schedules and complicated strategies, but not one had told him to just take small steps. The next day, Ryan tried it. He wrote down 3 small tasks: read 2 pages of history, memorize 5 math formulas, and practice 1 short essay. When he finished, he crossed each one off. The feeling of progress, however small, lifted him. For the first time, he felt a spark of control. Another day, Mr. Williams spoke about discipline. He told Ryan about his younger years, when he worked night shifts and studied by the dim light of a street lamp just to pass his high school exams. It wasn't easy, he admitted, but discipline is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Don't wait for motivation to come. Start, even when you don't feel like it. The feeling will catch up. Ryan had never thought of discipline that way. To him, studying always felt like a punishment, something he had to endure. But when Mr. Williams described it as a muscle, Ryan began to see it as something he could build. Their conversations continued in short bursts, often between classes or after school. Ryan found himself looking forward to those moments. He began, asking questions of his own, shyly at first, then with growing curiosity. "How did you keep going when you failed?" he asked one afternoon. Mr. Williams smiled and tapped his chest. "Because I knew failure didn't define me. I failed a test, yes. I failed a job, yes. But that didn't mean I was a failure. It just meant I had more to learn." You have more to learn too, Ryan. And that's not something to be ashamed of. The words sank deep into Ryan's heart. All his life, people had attached his worth to his results. If he failed, he was worthless. If he succeeded, he was valuable. But here was someone who told him that his worth was separate from his grades. That idea felt revolutionary, like a door opening to a new world. It didn't erase his struggles overnight, but it gave him something he had never felt before: hope. Slowly, Ryan's behavior began to change. He no longer hid his test papers under a pile of books. He started to look at them differently, almost as if they were maps showing where he needed to improve. When he studied, he used the small steps method, breaking chapters into pieces he could handle. He carried a notebook, jotting down thoughts, questions, and goals, and though he still stumbled often, he no longer felt crushed. Each stumble became a lesson, just as Mr. Williams had said. Others began to notice small differences, too. Teachers saw him paying closer attention. Classmates were surprised when he raised his hand, even if his answer wasn't perfect. The whispers didn't stop entirely, but they grew quieter as Ryan slowly built confidence. And behind every step forward was the quiet guidance of a janitor most people never noticed. Ryan didn't tell anyone about their conversations. It felt like a secret, treasure, a private world where he could be himself without fear. In that world, he wasn't the billionaire's son. He wasn't the boy who always failed. He was simply Ryan, a boy learning, struggling, and slowly growing stronger under the guidance of someone who saw him not as a problem, but as a person. And though he couldn't have known it yet, those quiet talks by the janitor's closet were planting the seeds of a transformation that would soon shock everyone around him. Ryan did not change in one day. He changed in small steps, the way a tree grows, quietly, a little more each morning. After school, he still went to the quiet hallway near the janitor's closet. Mr. Williams would be there, moving his mop along the floor or stacking boxes with careful hands. They talked in short moments, as if building a bridge one plank at a time. Each time, the janitor shared one simple idea that Ryan could try that very day. Ryan liked that. It was not big talk or fancy advice. It was small, clear action. One of the first new ideas was to study in short blocks. Try 25 minutes of focus, then take a 5-minute break, Mr. Williams said. Set a timer. Put your phone away. When the timer rings, stand up, stretch, drink water, then sit back down. Ryan tried it that evening. At first, the 25 minutes felt long. His mind kept wanting to wander. but he forced himself to stay with the page until the timer beeped. The break felt like a reward. When he returned for the next block, something felt different. The work was the same, but he felt less tired, more steady, as if his mind had learned a new rhythm. The next idea was about memory. "Don't just read," Mr. Williams said kindly. "Close the book and try to say it back in your own words. If you can teach it, you know it." So Ryan made it a rule. After each block, he shut his textbook and tried to explain the main point out loud as if talking to a friend. At first, he stumbled and forgot pieces. But when he had to look again, he knew exactly which part he did not understand. That saved time. He was not guessing anymore. He was finding the gap and filling it. He started to write short summaries in a notebook, using simple words and short lines. Each page looked clean and clear. The act of writing made things stick. Mr. Williams also spoke about building a small study corner. "Make a place that tells your brain, this is where we work. Keep it neat. Keep it simple," he said. Ryan cleaned his desk. He removed the game console, the extra gadgets, and the piles of old papers. He kept only his lamp, a clock, his notebook, and 2 pens. He placed a glass of water on the side. It looked almost empty at first glance, but it felt peaceful. When he sat at that desk, he understood it was time to focus. The room did not pull him in 10 directions. It pointed to one thing, the page in front of him. There was also a lesson about nights and mornings. "Go to bed earlier. Wake a bit earlier, Mr. Williams suggested. "Morning is quiet. Give your best hour to the hardest task." Ryan had never thought of mornings as his friend. He was used to staying up late, scrolling on his phone, sleeping poorly, and waking with a heavy head. First morning, he tried the janitor's idea. The sun had not fully risen. The house was silent. He opened his history book and started a 25-minute block. To his surprise, his mind felt fresh. The dates and names did not dance away as they usually did. He finished 2 blocks before breakfast. For the rest of the day, he felt lighter, as if he had already won something important. Not every day was smooth. Some days he felt slow again. Some pages still looked like a wall. On those days, he remembered another simple rule from Mr. Williams. When you get stuck, take a tiny step forward. Answer one question. Learn one term. Do not stop. Tiny steps are still steps. That rule saved him many times. Instead of giving up and calling the day a failure, he took a tiny step. He told himself, "I will do just 1 block." Often, after that 1 block, he found the strength to do 1 more. Bit by bit, the wall did not feel so tall. They also created a checklist together. On a sheet of paper, Mr. Williams wrote 4 lines. Plan, do, review, teach. Plan meant choosing 3 to 5 small tasks for the day. Do meant using the timed blocks. Review meant checking what he learned at night for 10 minutes. Teach meant saying it in his own words or writing a summary. Ryan copied that sheet and taped it to the wall above his desk. Each time he finished a step, he drew a small check mark. It was a simple act, but it made him feel strong. He could see his progress. He was not lost anymore. As weeks passed, teachers began to notice the change. In math class, Ryan raised his hand to try a problem at the board. His voice shook at first, but he followed the steps he had practiced during his blocks at home. He did not rush. He wrote each line, checked it, then moved to the next. When he reached the answer, the room fell silent. It was correct. The teacher smiled in surprise and said, "Well done, Ryan." The words were gentle, but they landed in his heart like sunlight in a cold room. He walked back to his seat, not proud in a loud way, but steady in a quiet way. In English class, he used his teach-it-back habit. After reading a chapter, he could explain the main idea in simple language. When the teacher asked who wanted to share, Ryan spoke. He did not try to sound smart. He aimed to be clear. The teacher nodded and wrote part of his answer on the board. A few classmates raised their brows. Some who had laughed at him before now watched him with new eyes, unsure how to react. One whispered, "Did he get a new tutor?" Ryan heard it, but it did not sting. He knew what had changed. Not money, not luck, but method and effort. There were still tests, and not all of them were good. A pop quiz in science caught him off guard. He scored average, not high. The old ache returned for a moment. He wanted to say, "See? Nothing really changed." But that same afternoon, he took the quiz to the quiet hallway. He and Mr. Williams went over each question. "This is not a verdict," the janitor said calmly. "It is information. What does it tell you?" Ryan studied the paper. He circled the parts he had missed. He saw a pattern. He struggled with small details in diagrams. Together they made a plan. The next morning, he practiced 3 diagrams and labeled them from memory. 3 days later, he was faster and more sure. The quiz had become a teacher. One day after school, Ryan asked a question he had held inside for a long time. "Why are you helping me?" Mr. Williams smiled and looked at the shining floor he had just cleaned. "Because somebody helped me," he said. "I was young once and tired of failing. A man showed me simple ways to keep going. He did not laugh. He did not judge. He saw me. Now I see you. That's how light moves, person to person." Ryan felt his throat tighten. He had heard many speeches in his life, from people on stages with bright lights. But this quiet truth in a clean hallway felt like the real kind of wisdom. They added another tool, flashcards. Ryan wrote questions on one side and answers on the other. He kept the deck small, about 20 cards, and reviewed them for 10 minutes a day. Each time he answered one correctly, he put it at the back. If he missed one, he moved it closer to the front to see it again sooner. It was a simple cycle. Over a week, the cards he struggled with the most became the cards he answered the fastest. He liked the feeling. It was like turning a weakness into a light switch he could finally control. On Fridays, he met with a teacher during office hours. This, too, had been a suggestion from Mr. Williams. "Some help is free and right in front of you," the janitor had said. "Go and ask. It is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of readiness." The first time, Ryan felt shy, but the teacher welcomed him. In 15 minutes, the teacher cleared a confusion that had bothered Ryan for 2 weeks. Ryan left the room thinking, "Why didn't I do this before?" Simple steps again. Open doors he had walked past for years. At home, his father noticed small changes. The driver said that Ryan asked to be dropped off a little earlier. The house staff noticed he put his phone in a drawer during study time. His mother noticed he went to bed half an hour earlier. His father did not say much. He was waiting, watching, as if expecting the old pattern to return. Ryan did not try to prove anything to him now. He had learned a new rule from Mr. Williams. Compete with the person you were yesterday. If you win that, you are already on the right road. Each night, Ryan asked himself one question before sleep. What tiny thing did I do better today? He wrote the answer in his notebook. Some days it was, I finished all my blocks. Some days it was, I kept calm in class. The list grew. So did his quiet belief. By the end of the month, a small shock rippled through the school. In a weekly math check, Ryan scored near the top. It was not a big exam, but it was real. A classmate whispered, How? Another said, Must be a new tutor. Ryan kept his head down and his steps steady. After class, he walked to the quiet hallway. Mr. Williams looked up from his mop and grinned. You did the work, he said simply. They bumped fists once, like a quiet celebration. No crowd. No stage, just a clean floor and 2 people who knew the story behind the score. With progress came a new kind of test, the test of pride. Success can make a person careless. Mr. Williams warned him gently. Stay humble. Keep your habits. One good week does not finish the race. Ryan nodded. He kept using the timer. He kept the study corner clean. He kept the checklists. He still made mistakes, but he saw them quickly now. He had built a way to catch himself, and when he fell, he did not call it the end. He called it a note from his teacher named Failure, and he read it closely. On a cool afternoon, as they packed up to leave, Mr. Williams gave him a final idea for the day. "Before a big exam," he said, "do one full practice under time. Sit like it is the real thing. No notes. Then check your work. You will learn where your time goes and where your mind slips." Ryan tried it on a Saturday morning. The first practice was messy. He ran out of time, but the second one was better. He learned to. The notice came on a Monday morning. The final exam would be in 2 weeks, then moved to 1 week after that because of a school event. The date was now close enough to feel real. Students whispered in groups and shared notes in the hallways. Ryan felt the familiar pressure in his chest, the fear that used to freeze his mind. But he did not run this time. He took out his small notebook and wrote one clear line. 7 days. Steady steps. Then he drew a box next to it and left it empty, waiting for the day he would mark it complete. That afternoon, he met Mr. Williams in the quiet hallway. The janitor looked up from his cart and smiled. "Big date coming, huh?" he said. Ryan nodded. "I'm scared," he admitted. "Good," Mr. Williams replied softly. "Fear means it matters. We can use that. Let's make a plan." They stood by the tidy shelves of cleaning supplies, and together they made a simple map. Each day would have 2 morning blocks for the hardest subject, 1 afternoon block for practice questions, and 1 evening block for review. The night before the exam would be light, just summaries and sleep. No late-night cramming, no panic. At home, Ryan turned that plan into action. He used his timer the way he had learned. 25 minutes of full focus, 5 minutes of rest. In the morning, he worked on the topics that always troubled him. He drew diagrams from memory, labeled each part, then checked and fixed mistakes. In the afternoon, he did mixed questions with a clock running. In the evening, he took 10 minutes to write short summaries, using the teach it back rule. He kept his desk clear. He kept his phone away. He kept his promises to himself. One evening, his father walked by his open door and paused. The room looked different. Clean desk, neat notes, a small clock ticking softly. Ryan looked up but did not rush to explain himself. He just nodded, then returned to his block. His father said nothing, only raised an eyebrow and moved on. Later, Ryan heard a quiet voice in the hallway, the driver telling a member of the staff, "The boy is different these days." Ryan did not smile, but he felt something warm inside. He was not doing this to prove anything to anyone. He was doing it because he had found a simple path he could actually walk. 3 days before the exam, he did a full practice under time, just as Mr. Williams had taught him. He sat at his desk with only a pencil, a watch, and plain paper. He read the instructions, started the clock, and began. At the 20-minute mark, panic tried to grab him when he got stuck on a hard question. He felt his heartbeat rise, but he had a rule now. Move on and return later. He placed a dot next to the question, turned the page, and found an easier one. His hand relaxed, his breath slowed, and his mind found its rhythm again. When the time ended, he checked his answers and found 3 small mistakes. He corrected them, and more importantly, he learned where his attention drifted. The practice had already taught him. The night before the exam, he followed the plan exactly. He did not open a new chapter. He read his own summaries, just to refresh the main points. He organized his bag: 2 pens, a sharpened pencil, an eraser, a watch, a clear bottle of water. He set 2 alarms and placed his phone far from the bed. He laid out his uniform. He stood at the window for a minute and watched the city lights. He thought of all the times he had felt small and helpless. Then he closed his eyes and told himself, "You did the work. Trust the work. He turned off the light and slept. He woke before the alarms in the quiet blue of early morning. He washed his face, ate a simple breakfast, and sat for one short review block. No new material, just confidence and calm. In the car, the city roads slid by, and for once he did not feel trapped by the school gate when the driver pulled up. He stepped out and stood straighter. The air felt cool. The day felt clear. In the hallway, the noise ran around him like a river. Last-minute guesses, nervous jokes, someone repeating a formula too quickly. A few classmates glanced at him. Some raised their eyebrows as if waiting for the old story to repeat. He did not take the bait. He found a quiet spot by a window and took 5 slow breaths. He drank a sip of water and walked to the exam room. He chose a seat near the front, where the wall of distraction was smaller. The teacher handed out the papers face down. "Do not turn them over until I say," she said. The room rustled with the sound of paper and chairs. Ryan placed his watch on the desk. He glanced once at the clock on the wall. When the teacher said, "Begin," he turned the paper over and did not write immediately. He scanned the entire test for 2 minutes, marking the sections. Easy, medium, hard. He wrote tiny time goals at the top of the page. Then he started with the easy ones to build speed and confidence. The first answer came quickly, then the second, then the third. His pencil moved with a steady rhythm. He checked his units, boxed his results, and kept going. When he reached a question that looked messy, he placed a small dot beside it, the same dot he had used in practice, and moved on without guilt. He heard a chair scrape behind him, a pen drop, a whisper. He kept his eyes on his paper. The second section was longer and his pace slowed, but he did not let fear bloom. He followed his plan, one step at a time. Halfway through, his eyes jumped back and forth between numbers, and for a moment the calm cracked. The old voice in his head tried to return. "You will mess this up." He paused, breathed in for 4 counts, breathed out for 4 counts, and reset his posture. He wrote down the given facts, drew a small diagram, and translated the problem into simple steps. Once the first line was on the page, the rest followed. He found a small error just in time, a sign mistake that would have ruined a whole answer, and fixed it. He felt grateful for the 2 minutes he had carved out for a quick check. Time moved faster now. He looked at his watch. 10 minutes left. He flipped to the dotted questions and took them down one by one. He did not aim for perfect language. He aimed for clear method. When the teacher called 5 minutes, he started his final review. He checked his name, checked that every question had a mark, and scanned for common slip-ups, units, signs, labels. He caught one more small mistake, a mislabeled axis in a diagram, and corrected it. When the teacher said, "Pens down," he set his pencil aside and sat back with quiet, honest relief. He had done the work. He had respected the paper. Whatever happened next, he knew this truth. The hallway after the exam felt like the inside of a beehive. Everyone talked at once. Some students argued about answers. Others boasted. A few looked upset. Ryan did not join any of it. He stepped outside for fresh air and walked toward the quiet corner by the janitor's room. Mr. Williams was there, as if he knew. He looked up and asked only 2 words. "How was it?" Ryan smiled in a small way and said, "I did what we planned." The janitor nodded, and that was all. No big speech, no loud praise, just a calm, shared understanding. They bumped fists once, like a promise kept. The days of waiting were their own test. In the past, waiting had eaten him from the inside. Now he kept his routine light but steady. He did short blocks to stay sharp. He took walks in the evening. He showed up to class and listened well. When worry tried to creep in, he returned to the same words. Trust the work. At home, his father seemed restless. One night at dinner, he mentioned a school abroad, a place with a famous name where many wealthy families sent their children. "It might be good for you," his father said carefully. "A fresh start." Ryan looked at his plate for a moment and then met his father's eyes. "Let's wait for the results," he said softly. His father gave a slow nod, but the doubt in his face was clear. Results arrived on a Thursday morning. The school sent a message to every student and posted a list in the main hall as well. A crowd formed quickly. Ryan walked to the board without rushing. He stood a little back from the crowd and waited for a gap. Names and numbers filled the page. He found his class, traced down the list, and saw his name. Next to it, a score that did not seem real at first. He read it again. It was not just a pass. It was near the top, higher than he had ever imagined. His heart did not jump wildly. It opened like a window in a warm room. Someone noticed. "Ryan?" a classmate said, surprised. Another student leaned in, then turned to look at him with wide eyes. A teacher walking by paused, checked the list, and then looked at Ryan with an honest smile. "Well done," she said, and her voice carried the weight of real respect. A few students clapped softly. Others simply stared, trying to fit this new fact into their old story. Ryan did not gloat. He did not shrink. He said, "Thank you," and stepped away from the board. Back in the quiet hallway, the floor shined as always. Mr. Williams stood with his mop, as if nothing in the world had changed. Ryan walked up to him, and they both knew before a word was said. "You did it," the janitor said, his eyes kind. "We did the work," Ryan replied. They stood there for a moment in simple silence, like two builders looking at a bridge they had built step by step. Then Mr. Williams said, "Remember what we talked about. Stay humble. Keep your habits. This is not the end of the road. It is the proof that the road works." Ryan nodded. He felt calm and grateful. He felt strong in a quiet way. His phone buzzed, a message from his father. "Come to my office after school." The words looked formal on the screen, but he felt no fear now. He put the phone away, thanked Mr. Williams again, and headed to class with an easy step. The day around him looked the same as any other day, the same lockers, the same wind. Ryan walked to his father's office after school with steady steps. The hallway outside the glass door felt longer than usual. He could see his father's shape through the tinted window, sitting behind a big desk, reading a report. Ryan knocked once and heard his father's voice say, "Come in." The room smelled like leather and polished wood. The city skyline shone behind his father's chair, tall buildings like a wall of silver. His father did not smile. He folded his hands and looked at Ryan for a few seconds. "The results came out," he said in a careful voice. "I saw your name." Ryan nodded and waited. His heartbeat was quick, but his face was calm. His father leaned forward. "Which tutor?" he asked. "Which program? Just tell me what I paid for." "No tutor," Ryan said softly. "No program. I studied with a plan. A simple one." His father frowned. "From where?" "From the janitor at school," Ryan said. "Mr. Williams?" The word seemed to float in the air and settle slowly on the desk. His father blinked, as if he did not understand. "The janitor?" he repeated. "You mean the man who cleans the floors?" "Yes," Ryan said. "He taught me how to study in small steps. He taught me to use time blocks, to write summaries, to practice like the real exam, and to see failure as a teacher. He saw me when everyone else saw only a problem." His father sat very still. He opened his mouth, then closed it. For years, he had lived in a world where solutions were expensive and help came with a high fee. The idea that a man with a mop and a gentle voice had unlocked his son's mind did not fit his map of the world. But the proof was on the paper in the school hall. The proof was in Ryan's steady eyes. Where did you meet him? His father asked finally, the edge in his voice gone. In a quiet hallway, Ryan said. I used to hide there. He didn't judge me. He listened. He gave me simple tools that worked. His father looked down at the desk. For the first time, his voice sounded unsure. I thought sending you abroad might help, he said. Maybe I wanted to move the problem instead of understanding it. He was silent for a moment, then asked, Can I meet him? Tomorrow, after the school assembly, Ryan said. I plan to thank him there. The next morning, the school gathered. In the assembly hall, sunlight fell through high windows, painting bright shapes on the floor. Teachers sat in rows, students shifted in their seats, buzzing with the small energy of a big day. The principal stepped to the microphone to announce the top performers and the students who had made strong improvements. Ryan's name came up in both lists. A soft wave of surprise passed through the crowd. It was not loud, but it was real. Ryan stood and walked to the stage when they called him. He did not rush. He did not stare at the floor. He breathed in, breathed out, and let his eyes rest kindly on the faces in front of him. The principal handed him a certificate and whispered, Well earned. Ryan turned to the microphone, feeling his heart beat, but also feeling his feet grounded on the wooden stage. I want to say thank you, he began in a clear, simple voice. But not only to my teachers and my family. I want to thank someone most of us pass by without seeing. When I was failing, I hid in a quiet hallway. A man there listened to me. He taught me small steps, simple habits, and a new way to think about failure. He told me failure is not a name. It is a note from a teacher. That man is Mr. Williams, our janitor. He is the reason I stand here today. The room changed. Heads turned toward the side door where Mr. Williams stood with his cart, half in shadow. For a second, he looked as if he might step back and disappear. Then the principal smiled and raised a hand. Mr. Williams, she said, would you join us? The janitor walked slowly down the aisle, his steps quiet, his face gentle. The students watched in a new kind of silence. Some of them had never even learned his name. Many had only seen the uniform, the mop, the cart of supplies. Now they saw a person who had changed a life. On stage, Ryan shook his hand. Thank you, he said, and his voice shook a little. Mr. Williams nodded once and patted his shoulder. You did the work, he said softly into the microphone when the principal offered it to him. All I did was give you a small map. He turned his eyes to the students. You all can make small maps. For each other. For yourselves. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. Don't be too proud to give it. The hall broke into applause, not the sharp kind that comes and goes, but the warm kind that grows. Some teachers stood. A few students wiped their eyes. In the third row, Ryan's father stood too, not because others were standing, but because he felt something move inside him, something like respect, something like learning. After the assembly, Ryan walked with his father to the quiet hallway. Mr. Williams was putting away his cart. The floor shone. The air smelled clean. Ryan's father reached out his hand first. Thank you, he said, and his voice was not the voice he used in boardrooms. It was the voice of a man speaking to another man with a full heart. I did not see what you saw. I am grateful. Mr. Williams shook his hand and smiled. He was ready, he said. Sometimes all a person needs is a small door to open. They stood together for a moment, three people from different worlds sharing a single truth. Then Ryan's father said, If you agree, I would like to support more students who feel lost, the way Ryan did. Not in a loud way, in a steady way. Scholarships for those who need tutors, quiet study corners in the library, maybe even a small program to teach study habits in simple language. Would you help us design it? Mr. Williams glanced at Ryan and then back at his father. I'll help if we also remember the people who keep this place standing, he said gently. The ones who open the doors early, who sweep the floors, who fix the lights. They are part of learning, too. Ryan's father nodded. Yes, he said. We will remember. In the weeks that followed, small changes began. The school created a quiet corners area in the library with simple desks, clocks, and notepads. They put up a poster with 4 lines: plan, do, review, teach. They held short sessions after class where any student could learn how to make a study plan, how to use time blocks, how to practice calmly. Mr. Williams joined those sessions on his break when he could. He never took the spotlight. He just stood near the back and answered questions with the same soft steadiness he had given Ryan. At home, the mood changed too. Ryan's father did not stop being busy, but he made a new habit. Twice a week, he sat with Ryan for 15 minutes after dinner. He did not ask for scores. He asked, "What tiny thing did you do better today?" Ryan would share one small victory and sometimes one small mistake. They laughed together at the honest moments. It felt new. It felt like air moving in a room that had been closed for years. One evening, his father said something Ryan had never heard before. "I was not always like this," he admitted. "When I was young, I failed a sales exam 3 times. I hid it. I told people I was too busy to sit for it. The truth is, I was scared. I wish I had met someone like Mr. Williams then." He paused and placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "I am sorry for the times I made you feel smaller. I thought pressure made diamonds. But diamonds also need time and care. Thank you for not giving up." Ryan listened quietly. Forgiveness came easily because he had learned to forgive himself first. "We're learning," he said, and they both smiled at the simple truth. At school, a younger student began to sit near the quiet hallway where Ryan once hid. He was a shy boy with a backpack too heavy for his small shoulders. Ryan noticed him and remembered what it felt like to be invisible. One day, he sat beside the boy and said, "Do you want a small map?" He pulled out a notepad and drew 4 boxes. Plan, do, review, teach. The boy looked up with a mix of hope and doubt. Ryan smiled. "We'll do it together," he said. Later, he found Mr. Williams in the hallway. "I passed it on," he said. The janitor's eyes warmed. "That's how light moves," he replied. "Person to person." As the term went on, Ryan kept his habits. He still used his timer. He still made flashcards. He still did practice tests before big exams. He kept his desk simple and his evenings calm. If he stumbled, he knew what to do, take one tiny step, then another. He did not chase perfect days. He built good ones. His old fear still visited sometimes, but it did not stay. He had tools now, and tools turned fear into action. On a clear afternoon near the end of the year, the school hosted a small celebration for staff. Students wrote notes to the people who kept the school running. Ryan wrote one to Mr. Williams. He kept it simple, the way he had been taught to keep everything that mattered. "You taught me a secret," he wrote. "Not a trick, a way to live. Small steps, steady heart, respect for every person and every job. I will carry it, and I will share it." He folded the note and placed it on the janitor's cart, weighed down with a clean white cloth. As he walked away, he thought of the boy he had been, the one who hid, the one who felt like a shadow in a golden world. He thought of the day he said, "I did what we planned," and how that sentence had become a doorway to a new life. He thought of his father learning to listen. He thought of the assembly, the warm applause, the surprise that turned into respect. And he thought most of all of a quiet man with strong hands who had seen him as a person, not a problem. The life-changing secret was not magic. It was discipline in small pieces. It was humility that lets help in. It was the courage to try again after failing. It was seeing the value in people others ignore. It was believing that steady effort can mow.